Hi everyone, welcome back. It's been a bit since I did my last video. I did one after I went to Edinburgh for the 20 books to 50K conference. But yeah, I will be starting my videos up again from today onwards because summer's over, back to school, right? And also, I haven't had a heart-to-heart since June when I had my heart-to-heart with Greg Gibb about pen names in erotica romance. So this is the first one of the year. I've met so many people over the summer, and I will be doing a video on that at some point. And I mean, as you're aware, like I used to do these videos once every month, but by now the schedule is looking more like I'm gonna do these heart-to-hearts every 2 weeks. So let's see until when I can keep that up. But I have great talks in store for you, and we're starting off with a really, really good one. And I see she's already watching us, so I will invite her in soon. Today I'm going to talk with Halona Black. If I did not pronounce it right, I hope she will correct me soon. And we're going to talk about what do you do when you realize the career you're having, the writing career you're having, is not the writing career you want to have. How do you start over? Where do you start? What do you do? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to invite her in, and let's hope Facebook is accommodating. Dun, dun, dun. This is always the scary bit. Connecting. There you are.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You pronounce your name Marielle?
Mm, Officially, officially, right? It's like depends on where you are.
Yeah.
Officially, like so the Dutch, right? The
hmm
Dutch. It's been given to me with my Dutch mother. Um,
Okay.
so the Dutch pronunciation will be Marielle.
Mariella.
Yeah, but
Close.
the the English speakers either go Marielle or Mariella, and I now live in Cyprus, so it's more like Mariella. So
Ah,
I'm
okay.
just I'm just going with it. It's fine. Like if I hear something that sounds like my name, I will stop and, look over my shoulder and be like, eh. So how about your name? Did I pronounce that right?
Halona, yes.
Okay, okay, that was good. Yeah.
hmm
Welcome. I did not introduce you because I always prefer my guests to introduce themselves because who better to introduce themselves? So would you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure.
And then let's get into where you've been, why this topic, and then let's see how the conversation unravels.
Sure. Well, my name is Halona Black. I am originally from the US, and I'm a traveling writer. So, what I do is I do a lot of freelance writing. So, for the most part, right now, that contains a lot of content marketing, writing for various like health companies and writing blog posts and ghostwriting content and things like that. I also have a part of my business where I do ghostwriting for write ghostwriting books and other sorts of content marketing for higher ups in various companies. Um, and then I'm also starting something new where I am teaching people how to write their own self help books for their companies, people like coaches and things like that. So I'm excited about a lot of the different writing projects my writing career has right now.
Yeah, it sounds like 'cause I'm a bit the same. Like when
hmm
everybody's like, "How can you do what you do?" Because I do all the things, and I see how they're all related, but other people are like, "How does that?" I'm like, "Yeah, for me it all makes sense." But I
Yeah,
could never do a 9 to 5 job just doing the same thing over and over. No, I need to,
yeah.
have the variety and just,
hmm
like as long as all parts of my brain get fired up,
hmm
I'm
Right.
very happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm the
so
same way.
so yeah, okay, so tell us, because you are starting over. So could you, or you have started over. Could
hmm
you tell us a little bit about where you've been
hmm
and when you realized this is really not where I want to be?
hmm
So what was the start of the
Um,
journey?
The start of my writing journey. I started
Yes.
probably about 5 or so years ago. I was transitioning from a career in adult education. So I taught for a number of years in community colleges and community-based organizations in the States where I was teaching the high school equivalency diploma programs, as well as teaching and job training programs. Um, I started to get tired of that after doing that for about 15 years. And I was looking for a way to be able to transition. So, at about that same time, I was also going through a lot of changes in my own personal life. So, I had issues with my own personal health. I was suffering with uterine fibroids. My mother had passed away from breast cancer. I was getting a divorce. I was in a doctoral program and decided, you know what, after 2 years in the program, I really don't want to be here. So
Yeah.
I decided to leave. And I was just really sort of left with this feeling of, okay, I know what I don't want to do, but what does that mean for me? Who am I? What am I doing? What do I really want to do?
Mhm.
Um, and so what I wound up doing was turning to blogging. Um, while I was working in education, I had an education blog, but when I started to leave that, I had always felt like writing was really a great space for me to be able to use um, what I knew how to do and felt like I was good at it as sort of expressing myself. And so I wanted to be able to use my writing to sort of guide my way through figuring out what I wanted to do. So I started a sort of health and wellness blog where I talked about my issues with my own uterine fibroids. I was learning how to eat various foods and learning how to cook from scratch. Um, and that journey was a lot of fun. And I had really didn't feel like I was having any fun at work, you know, for who knows how many years. Um,
Yeah, but
you
anyway,
know,
we tend to go on for much longer than we
yeah,
should, right? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so, it was nice to just like go to the farmer's market and learn about new fruits and vegetables and write about them and figure out how to use them and do research on the internet on how to be able to use them. And I got so good at it that I started to go to do things like potlucks with other girlfriends. We would meet up for the weekend and, just to have some girl time away from everybody else. And I would bring stuff and people would be like, oh, this is so nice and healthy and it's delicious. You wouldn't even think that this was something that, um, would be good for you. And so I sort of turned that into cooking classes and things for people. And then the cooking classes turned into writing articles about the recipes that I was doing. And I really wasn't getting paid a lot for doing any of this stuff. It was just sort of, I was doing it for fun. If they paid me, great. If they didn't, it's no big deal.
Were you
Um,
still
but
teaching at the time?
yeah, I was still teaching at the time.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was sort of just doing this on the weekend nights and weekends, whenever I could find it. But after about a year of doing that, I actually wound up losing my job. And so when I lost my job, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I really don't want to have to go and get another job. So I wound up, sitting on unemployment for a good 6 months. And that sort of gave me some time to sort of decompress from all the stuff that I was going through. And I had really had time to just sort of sit down and think about, really what move do I want to make next. So that move wound up moving me into getting a job at Whole Foods, which, seems sort of strange is that, I had a master's degree and all kinds of other stuff. And people are like, why do you want
Yeah.
to work at Whole Foods? That just seems
Yeah,
like
it's
you're moving
like,
backwards in life.
yeah.
But really, like, honestly, that was one of the best jobs I'd ever had. And I wound up working there for 6 months and I worked in the kitchen. And the reason why I got the job, I had wound up beating out a group of other people who had gone to culinary school and everything that I had learned was self-taught. But I had gotten
Yeah.
the job
Hmm.
because I had showed them my blog about the stuff that I was writing about, and they really needed someone who knew about um, healthy foods and could come up with some just basic healthy recipes that they could serve to their employees because they felt like they weren't doing a great job of that in that particular store. So I was like, cool. And so it also gave me a really nice way to be able to learn from a lot of people who were like really serious, went to school chefs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a
I
great
learned all.
environment. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and so really talented people that were working there, I got to be able to learn from. So I did that for 6 months, and then I wound up moving to Florida, where I decided I didn't really want to do the cooking classes and things anymore, um, just because I didn't like all the moving around. And so I wanted something where I could just learn, I could just stay home in one space and just write. And so while I
Yeah.
was writing, I had to learn how to figure out how to start a freelance writing business. And that's really, what sort of got me into freelance writing. Um, I had to learn how to do it from scratch. Once again, that's sort of a theme in my life. Once you get to a crossroads someplace, you got to kind of figure out how to learn how to start all over again. But it doesn't always have to necessarily mean you go to college or get a degree, or, I mean, it can, but it doesn't necessarily have to. There's so many ways for you to be able to teach yourself how to be able to do things nowadays. So I found a few people online who were, just had basic ebooks, because I didn't have a whole lot of money to invest in a whole coaching program. But just some basic ebooks that taught me the basics of how to maintain a freelance business. And so I started off writing stuff for $5, $10, and $25. Did that for a year, and I realized that that was not really a way to be able to sustain
No.
myself where I was living.
No, yeah, that's not a suspect. That's the thing. Uh, like websites like Fiverr and stuff. That's nice if you do it like on the side.
Hmm. Yeah,
But if that's your full-time gig, yeah,
it's
you're never
hard.
gonna get
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. So what I wound up doing was about a year into doing that, there was someone who had found my website and asked me to take on a copy editing job, working with the city of Orlando, editing standardized tests, which is the most boring job I've ever had in life. But they paid pretty good. And it
yeah,
gave me a chance to be able to improve my editing skills. If I got nothing else out of it, I got to be able to improve my editing skills, because I got to look at all of these standardized tests that were written by teachers, and like literally from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. that was all I was doing was was editing these test questions.
yeah. Like
It
I
was
am an
terrible.
editor. I am an editor, but
Hmm.
not from like not. Also, I do a lot of fun stuff as
Hmm.
well. But then
Yeah.
also like even just like having because like being an editor asks for a particular kind of focus, and there's just no way your brain can keep that up
Hmm.
that many
Yeah.
hours in a row. Like you need breaks because it's very intensive work. Yeah. But like
Yeah.
if it's standardized test, I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you only get a 30-minute break for lunch while you're doing it.
Okay, I'm feeling that one for
It was
sure. Yeah.
terrible.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was terrible, but the good thing about it is that I got to hone my editing skills, which was a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I got the extra money that I needed to be able to participate in a coaching program where for 3 months I really got a good idea of how to look for really good clients, as particularly as far as content marketing was concerned, how much you should be charging, where do you find these clients, all of those sort of basic skills, so that by the time that particular editing job ended, it was just a 1 year temporary assignment. By the time that ended, I was ready to just jump right back into my whole freelance writing life. And so that was probably what, um, 3 years ago now. Yeah. So from since then, I've been able to pretty much maintain my work as a freelance writer. However, at the same time, I was also feeling sick myself. And so during that time, working hard trying to get my freelance writing going, I had a lot of issues still with the uterine fibroids, issues with adrenal fatigue, and just feeling very lethargic and feeling like
Mm-hmm.
my brain was very foggy. I couldn't think, and so that was putting a hindrance on the work that I was doing with my clients, because I
Yeah.
just couldn't think. And, you need your brain to write. So
Yes. Yes.
it just
Absolutely.
wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't happening as fast. Um, and so at some point I decided that, I needed to take a break. I was just taking a bunch of pills and things to be able to make myself feel better. I was self-medicating with various herbs and things that, you go to herbalists and things like that, trying to be able to find something that will help to get you through, but not really
Yeah.
solving any problem from the root, because it would get better for a little bit, and then when you stop taking it, you'll get sick again. So it was this on and off
Yeah.
again
It's just
cycle.
tackling the symptoms, right?
Yeah, just
Instead
looking
of
at the
digging
symptoms.
deep, it was just, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I wound up taking some time off for a few months. I went and I stayed with my father for a little bit, and he allowed me, just it was how long was it? Maybe 6 months. I stayed with him to be able to gather myself and figure out what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was to travel. And I figured, if I travel, I would have the time and the space to just be able to sort of get myself together and do um, my freelance writing work again. So then I wound up moving to Thailand. So, I saved up, a few dollars, bought a one-way ticket to Thailand, and I wound up in Chiang Mai, which is a very popular destination for a lot of, people who call them digital nomads.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very yeah. I hear about that one. All I'm in some of the nomad groups on Facebook as well, and that's
mhm.
always like
Yeah,
the place to be apparently. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a wonderful city. I enjoy it a lot. But when I arrived there, you pack all your stuff, and you're just one person trying to get from one place to another. And I didn't realize just really how sick I really felt, because I was too tired to even carry my own bags. So I wound up getting to Chiang Mai, and I just sort of collapsed. I couldn't really move around a lot. I still had my freelance writing clients, but I didn't. Um, I had my clients, but I was just maintaining. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of marketing to be able to, find new clients for when the old clients I had didn't really work with me anymore. So slowly things started to dwindle until I got to a point where I met a local herbalist in Chiang Mai, who put me in a program of his, a detox program that was only supposed to be about 2, maybe 3 months. For me, because I was so sick, I was in there for about 6 months. Um, but it was good for me because I needed it. So I had 6 months of the detox process. That was when I really just got to a point where I was just like, your brain is going through so many changes that you really just have to stop, and you couldn't work with as many clients as you could. I was still sort of maintaining, and I think some of my clients were just sort of putting up with me just for the heck of it. And
Yeah.
I'm
Just
grateful to them.
those are the best clients, the one who care, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and they understood that I was like, when I was really sick and if I couldn't keep up with the deadline, I was honest with them, and I told them why. And it usually wasn't something that was so, the deadline wasn't so important that if I didn't get it to them, I might. Um, I did that for the 6 months, and I got to a point where I was, better than I had ever been in years, and my energy is finally back to what it's supposed to be. Um, and I can, feel like I can go out and do anything, and I'm ready to go back to my clients. And out of all the clients that I was working with, I had maybe about 3 or 4 left. 3 of those clients dropped out from under me, so leaving me with only one client.
So this is okay. So when you went into the detox program, you still
Hmm.
had you were still working with them. In that process, you lost a few. So when you were out of
Yeah.
the program and you were like, now I can do this, you had
Hmm.
about four left, and then
Yeah.
three walked out.
Yeah, three of them and then that really wasn't any fault of my own. It was one that was, they had just decided we're going to use in-house writers, and then the other,
Yeah, companies make decisions like that. It's not
yeah,
always they
yeah,
change
hmm
strategies and then something has to give. Yeah, that's
hmm
just yeah. I'm quite used to
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah. The
yeah,
marketing department decided they wanted to do other things, and this it's just what
yeah. Like
happens.
priorities shift. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know
Hmm
exactly how to go. So this is the thing. It's like you're ready to get back at it, and then
hmm
you have one client left.
Yeah,
So
which is
what
that's
happened? Yes. So what happened in that moment?
Yeah, so that's quite a dangerous place as a freelance writer to be in, particularly if you haven't
Yes.
been doing any marketing for 6 months
Yeah.
to a year. Like if you've been doing nothing, like this is not the space. This is not a good space for you.
To
um,
be, yeah,
as,
no, no.
yeah, and particularly during the summer months. In the States, it's the summertime, so um, a lot of departments are just slow. There's just not a lot of work to be had. They might have some work, but it usually doesn't start up again until September.
Yeah.
So I was lucky that I had some money saved up. I had that one client, who's still riding with me throughout the summer. And I was
They were
grateful
sort
to
of like
have
they
that.
believed in you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so you just do what you have to do, and that it's a good thing part of the reason why I love this lifestyle so much is that you can go to spaces where um, your money goes a little bit further than it would in the States. So
Yes.
had I been in the States, it would have been it would have been a much bigger emergency than what I was in Thailand. Um, so I was able to make ends meet. Um, and just got to work on a whole new marketing plan. And because my mind is now in a clearer state, I also started to think about, all right, well, what do I want my business to really look like? And I've had all of these ideas over the years of things that I would like to be able to do, clients I would like to have, things I'd like to be able to teach. And also get into more creative aspects of being a writer. I love content marketing. I love what it's taught me about marketing in general. I've learned a lot of great skills, but it doesn't always feel like the most creative thing for me to do.
No, I
Um,
can totally see that. Yeah.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
was also looking for different spaces for me to just be able to express myself, so that I don't get bogged down into work so much that I fall into old cycles of overwork, and not being able to relax and have fun in other areas of my life. Yeah, so.
Is that one of the things you learned during the detox that it's also because
Hmm
I'm a recovering workaholic,
hmm
so that I know that pattern,
Yeah.
and especially when you have slow moments instead of we could go, oh, I'm having a slow moment. That is great. Thank you so much. I can take a break now because,
hmm
I was just working as 6 or 7 days a week for this one client. So great. What I tend to do is, it's a slow moment. And then I start focusing in marketing and I just go,
hmm
well, that's not necessarily necessary because, you just did all the work and now you can take a break. So is that something you learned as well during that detox, that it needs to be a balance
hmm
between work and play?
Absolutely. And what really helped was learning how to meditate. One of the things that I didn't
Yes.
share was that at the beginning of this year in 2019, I had done a 10-day, since I was in Thailand, which is a Buddhist country. Um, there's a lot of various temples that
I
foreigners
can
can go
imagine.
to
Yeah.
be able to just learn meditation practices. And so I signed up for a 10-day meditation retreat where you literally show up for 10 days and you spend time meditating.
You
And
just sit there.
I, yeah, you sit there and you meditate. And then there's walking
Yeah, I mean,
meditation
like
as well.
meditation saves me. Like
Hmm
meditation keeps me sane. So I'm completely with you on this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the end of the 10 days, what I found was that my body was filled with a lot less anxiety, because I suffered with a lot of anxiety. And so learning that lesson from then and just sort of picking up my meditation practice, um, I had built up a practice where I was and I still am meditating 30 minutes in the morning and then another 30 minutes in the evening.
That's
And
brilliant. Yeah,
so
that's so good.
when I got to this point of, what would have been panic before in my marketing, when I, only have one client and it's the middle of the summer and no one's really looking for new writers right now, um, I just got into meditation and it put me in a place where I'm able to think clearer. I focused on, what it is that I do have to offer and just really sort of that I am a people want to work with me, keep on reaching this, and eventually something will turn up. You just have to be patient. You focus on what you can do rather than sitting around
Yes.
panicking about,
Yeah.
things you can't control. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, so the meditation piece helped a lot.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan
Hmm.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
so,
so that is so this for you, this is your last starting over moment, right? You said like the starting from scratch thing, that's sort of a pattern that you see throughout your life. But for
yeah.
you, so this is actually the topic of today's conversation that after the detox program ended,
Hmm.
you were in a position that you could either go panic or it's an opportunity to see what do I really want now.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
that's how you took it. You took it as an opportunity.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to really figure out what else do I want my career to look like, because there's a million different things that you can do with your writing career. Years ago, when I was in my early 20s, and I had done a degree in video production and editing, and I used to write a lot of skits and things that I really enjoyed doing. But through the course of life, you wind up doing other things, and you forget all these things that you used to love when you were younger.
Yeah.
And so in meditation, I started to get all these ideas for different skits and things that I could possibly write. Not necessarily that I need to be able to do something professional with it right now, but it was good just to be able to exercise my writing skills in a way that doesn't necessarily fit within content marketing, at least not right now for me. But it may in the future, who knows?
Yeah, but
But the
also like it
point is,
shows that like meditation for me is like for me when I meditate, like just taking the time to sit with yourself, that sort of
mhm,
allows your creative juices to start flowing again.
yeah,
So that
hmm,
even if you don't do anything with it, because I think that's one of the things that's once you enjoy something and you're relatively good at something, like in this day and age, people go like you should do a business with that. You should freelance. Like sometimes it's just nice to be able to do
hmm,
things and just to keep to because like a lot of these things they flow into other aspects of your life in your career, but there's
hmm,
often so much of a focus like oh you can cook well you should you should teach cooking classes.
hmm,
Well, maybe I just want to be able to cook.
yeah,
So yeah, so that it doesn't necessarily, but we're so focused these days on can I make it professional? Like, can I turn this into something professional? And that's just, I don't think we always have to do that.
yeah, hmm, yeah.
Yeah,
You don't always have to do it, and there's just things that you can just sort of keep for yourself, you know.
yeah,
Um, and so that's, at least for now, that part of my writing is just something that I do for myself. And of course, when you learn certain skills, those skills transfer to other areas of your
yes,
life.
yes,
But it all starts in the fun, you know, that because we get older, like, on a regular basis, responsibilities, life should still be fun, so for me,
yeah,
being able to travel and learn about other cultures and being able to eat all types of interesting food and still have opportunities to be able to write in a way where all of those things are inspiring to me, it just makes for a better freelance writer. you know.
Yes.
I,
Yeah, but that's
and
the
I
thing. Is
love
like a
all
lot
those
of people
things.
that I work with, yeah. But a lot of my own clients, they come to me and what is based, that's not, it's not necessarily what they think is the issue, but what I often
Hmm.
see what the issue is they get so caught up in how they should be doing things,
Hmm.
because they look at how other people are doing things, they forget first of all why they even started to write.
Yeah.
So a lot of my work is just returning them to that original
Hmm.
spark.
Yeah.
Because and this is also the thing, like if you're healthy and happy and you write, the reader will know it
Hmm.
because that will feed into your work. Like I honestly believe that. Like the better you feel yourself, the better the words you're gonna produce. Because then there's
Absolutely.
the passion, it's inspired. So yeah, like the self-care is very important there. Yeah.
One of the things that I was just saying the other day was I do a weekly newsletter, much like you do for your audience, and it's so nice for me to just be able to say, oh, I had this experience and this is what this experience meant to me. And I feel like I can communicate these things a lot better
Yeah.
because there's not that slowdown in my brain anymore. I feel like I can write and
Yeah.
have a general conversation and actually connect with people. And I'm getting, people are responding back to me, which means that, it's working. And so I have all these different projects
Yeah.
that
Yeah. The
are
interaction
in
is there.
various.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have all these different projects that are in different phases of development, um, and it's just nice to be able to have that sort of variety in my writing career now.
Like, so that's where you are now. So you started, as you said in the beginning, like right now you have different projects lined up.
Hmm. Yeah, I have
And is
different
is
projects.
that is that the direction that you want to go?
Yeah, it is. It
So
with
what exactly did you realize? What is the writing career you do want to have?
Mhm.
What lesson did you learn from the detox and losing the clients? What is it? Where do you want to go from here?
Well, I
What are you working
want
on
to.
now?
Yeah, I want to be able to really stuff that I was writing before I was, and you were just writing these mindless blog posts about any and everything. Which is cool. They need content marketing too. But I really wanted to be
Hmm.
able to connect myself to companies that have a mission, to people who are really excited about the company that they are representing, whether they started themselves or they somehow have a position within the company where they have a mission that they're really excited about. And if the person is excited about the work that they're doing, then that helps me to figure out, okay, what can I do to really support this cause or this particular mission, or any other projects that help this group of people over in this part of the world. So that's really exciting to be able to take a step back and really think about what types of clients do you really want to work with in your content marketing portion of your business.
Yeah, and that's one that, like what we just discussed, like the passion and the inspiration. If you work with people
Mm-hmm.
who are passionate and excited
Mm-hmm.
about what they're doing, that helps. Like I have the same, like it helps so much with the writing yourself because you're like that kind of energy. That's such an interesting flow to have. And if you're working with people who are just like, yeah, this needs to be done, could you do it? That's a completely different kind of energy exchange.
It absolutely. Doing on a daily basis, and they value you a lot more. They value your opinion. It's not just about getting these blog posts in. They really want to talk to you about strategy work and how to really, I write the content, but how do you actually make the content work,
Yeah.
for the goals that they actually have. So it's a you get to be part of a lot more of the long-term process of where your content that you write is actually going for the client. So that's really fun too.
Yeah, I can see. So if you could sum it up, like if you look at where you are now, what are
Hmm.
the biggest lessons, not necessarily just from the detox program, but the biggest lessons you learned um, when you find yourself on that crossroad and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go that way now.
Hmm.
What are the biggest, you've done that quite a few times in your life. So what are the biggest lessons you learned from that? Like what kind of advice can you give to the people who will be listening or watching um, our conversation?
Yeah, I would say those things that are popping up in your head. Um, if it's coming up as something that you want to do, a lot of times we want to brush it under the bed for the sake of being responsible. You know, changing careers right now is not a responsible thing to do, or changing to a different type of client is not the responsible thing to do because I've built up so
Yeah.
many various clients in this area and it's working for me. I can't change. Um, but when you get to a point where you start to feel like, you're dying on the inside.
Yeah. And I think recognizing that takes a bit.
Hmm. Yeah, it's okay to
Yeah.
take some time for yourself to be able to think about, what's best for me in this situation, and to I'm not saying, to be irresponsible, but just to really think about what it is that you need for your life to be able to work. Because when you feel good about what it is that you're doing, everything else sort of falls into place. You'll find a way to be able to make money. If you got to pare back on some of the things that you're working on, or some of the things that you indulge in as far as purchases are concerned, do that. Don't be afraid to do that. It's not going to be forever. So that's definitely.
And is it also for like because I think what it is often is that we pretend we tell ourselves we're just being responsible, but what we are in fact we're
Mhm.
scared shitless. And we call that we're just being responsible, right? I think that's often what happens. We'll go like, we can't
Mhm.
do that because of the mortgage, or because the kids are
Mhm.
about to go into college, or we just bought a new, or we might need a new car in a year. Can't, that there's so many things,
Right.
and I think exactly that's we call that we're just being responsible, but in fact you're
Mhm.
just being afraid, which is
Yeah.
which is which is legit to a certain
Mhm.
extent. If you're afraid, like go into that and sort of try to, what are you afraid of exactly? What
Mhm.
is the worst thing that can happen? And I think a lot of people don't have that conversation because they just go, no, I'm just being responsible.
Mhm.
Um, and going after what you really, really want, that's a very vulnerable,
It
very
is.
vulnerable thing to do. Yeah.
It is a very vulnerable thing to do. So I think what's helpful is also to find models of people who are doing what it is that you want to do. Where you know that
That's
someone else has been successful at doing what it is that you want to do, at least you'll have some examples of pathways to be able to get there. When you feel, for oftentimes for a lot of people, entrepreneurship or just learning how to do freelancing, whether you do it full time or even part time, it's not a normal thing. Of examples within your own family, even within your own circle of friends of people who do this sort of thing on a regular basis. So you
no,
really have to
not so
do
you
some
really have to go
searching to be
online
able to
these
find
days.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's really been one of
Yeah.
the greatest benefits for me for social media. As far as Facebook groups are
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah.
Because the
You can
only
find
way
your
I've been
clan
able
there.
to learn, yeah, and the only way I've been able to learn a lot of this stuff is through people who were teaching freelancing skills and all sorts of writing skills online. Friends, network day job. No one there was interested in talking about having conversations about doing things outside of your regular 9 to 5. So no one could really give me
Yeah.
any advice. So it's a very lonely space to be in.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
great to be able to reach out on social media.
well, that's what I like. I was just in Edinburgh a few weeks back, or it's already a month ago, for a conference, a writing conference, 20 books to 50K, and it was really interesting because when you're
Hmm.
there. you're all doing the same thing. So you're all in it together. So you feel like
Mhm.
this really big family. And then you learn that almost everybody there is the only one in their family who's
Mhm.
doing what they're doing, and we all have the same struggles. Your parents don't understand you. Sometimes your partner doesn't understand you. Your siblings don't understand you. They just talk, and yeah, that's yeah. Because even though there are so many people out there, and like if you go online, if you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, like it's almost as if this is the era of the entrepreneur. But
Mhm.
still, like meeting them like face to face, that's still there's still so many people who are doing it the way we've always done it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that connection, that's really for me, it really helped me believe that I can do what I want to do, but also it made me feel more sane. You know, like, am I crazy that I think this is something I can do? Well, no, because a lot of people have done it before me, and they will be the first ones to encourage you when you have your moment of like, what am I doing? Should I be doing this? Like, should I give up? They'll be the first to sort of like, cheer you on and go like, no,
Mhm.
no, 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 you got this, you got this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
community
so
definitely.
it's good. Yeah, you definitely need some community, and just start with baby steps. You don't necessarily have to jump out there and start with a full time freelance career. You don't have to quit everything in order to pursue what it is that you want. Um, but you start small. Just look for small jobs that wherever you can find and see what feels good to you. And it sort of naturally you'll find that the pieces are going to fit together. When I look back over the last 5 or so years that I've been doing this, like I can't believe that I've gotten this far in my writing career to a point where I can, leave my country and go someplace else and be completely happy in a place where I don't speak the language. I know, very little about the culture, and I'm just sort of learning as I go along, and I'm comfortable with all of it. It's so much fun. This is something that I've always wanted to do for at least 20 years of my life. Um, Volunteer in Togo, in when the 2 years regular job. But I've always said I've wanted to live overseas and to be able to learn about various cultures and things like that. But I didn't really have a way to be able to figure out how do you do that beyond just taking 1 to 2 weeks of vacation a year. And so now that I have this opportunity to be able to do this in this way, I couldn't have planned this even if
Definitely.
I wanted to. There's no way I could
Yeah.
have planned this, from then. So it all kind of works out if you allow it. If you allow it to work out, it will all work out for itself. Just take one step, one foot in front of the other, and everything will work out for you if you just keep moving towards the vision that sort of gets clearer, the closer you get to it.
So it's about trust
Hmm.
and maybe also
Yeah.
about allowing yourself to follow your curiosity.
Hmm.
Because what I see a lot around me is that people focus on like they have their 10-year, 20-year plan. And and I always believe that there has to be a balance. Like it's really good to know where you're headed, but there needs to be enough room for detours or for maybe something better is in store than you thought was in store. So maybe so
Hmm.
it's good to have direction, but
Hmm.
don't go like this is where I'll be in 10 years and then forget about the steps you're taking in between because I think it is much more fruitful if you just take the
Hmm.
steps one by one, and then maybe in 10 years you'll find you're some in a completely different place, but it's much better than you could have ever imagined for
Hmm.
yourself. So it's the balance between knowing where you're headed, but like leaving enough room to get
Hmm.
where you need to be. That's how I would
Absolutely.
how I would phrase it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up, I'm a single person, so I'm traveling. I travel. I'm only responsible for myself, basically. But I also get a lot of people, women in particular, who say, I wish I could do what you do, but I have kids, I have responsibilities,
Hmm.
which is totally valid. I get it. But
Yeah.
I've also met a ton, not a ton, but I've met various families who travel together. I've met single mothers who have, everybody from babies all the way up through teenage years that and they're traveling. together. I've met families who have children who have special needs, and they travel together. And these are not rich families either. These are just people who, saved a bit of money. They decided what experiences they wanted to be able to have.
Hmm.
They found ways to be able to educate their children. There's so many choices in how to educate your children nowadays. It's crazy. There's no reason for you to not be able to pursue what it is that you want anymore. All of those, excuses that we used to come up with, or, I don't have enough money, I'm not rich, or, I have my children, families with 5 kids, they manage to be able to go out and travel in a way that suits their needs. So find a way to be able to do it is really
Yeah,
what I want to
so that's
say.
what you're saying. Like when you think you're being responsible,
Hmm.
think a little further and check in with yourself if it's being responsible or whether you're just afraid to take the leap.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which is not to say, like, I'm a really big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert. She says it in Big Magic. She
Hmm.
says, you never have to take, and this is what you said as well, but like, you don't have to go, I want to be a freelancer and then quit everything and just, try to be a freelancer because that's a very tricky
Hmm.
um, um, thing to do. I mean, it
It
might feel
is.
exhilarating, but if you end up, if you take the jump and there's no safety net, if you're a pile of bones at the bottom of the mountain, like
Yeah.
who's gonna pick you up, that's the analogy she uses. So she's like, you can jump, but it doesn't have to be a massive jump. You can, if you want to go someplace, if you want to do something else, save up enough money that you can
Hmm.
actually, when you make the jump, you might get a little bruised, but you won't end up in the
Hmm.
hospital. So find that balance. And for me, because like often you hear, if you really want something and you go for it, then it will happen. And
Hmm.
she's a bit more nuanced in that, yes, but you can still be reasonable about it. But just don't let fear take
Hmm.
over. But you can still be reasonable and
Hmm.
responsible. So find the balance between like taking jumping, always jump,
Hmm.
but be a little bit sensible about it as well. Yeah, yeah. But don't let fear keep you from um, changing your life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and for me, there was a lot of small steps. So working from home was a big step. I had no idea what working home was going to be like, and that was an adjustment to figuring out how to work from home, as opposed to getting up every day to go to an office where you work with other people. That was an adjustment that I had to make. Um, Also, before I came to Thailand, um, I went to Mexico for 30 days. Just sort of, if I leave the country, how am I going to figure out how to have internet and all of those other things? I don't know. A lot of people think that when you leave the States that you're somehow going to be, stranded somewhere
Disconnected.
without internet.
Yeah, yeah.
And not that
There's
there aren't
nothing.
places like
There's
that.
nothing outside. It's just desert. It's just desert outside the United States. There's nothing there. Yeah.
It is,
It's
mhm.
yeah, yeah.
And it
Oh,
was
but that's
nice
good
to
as
be
well. So you
able.
did. So that was your baby step. Instead of just
That
going
was
like,
my baby
what the
step.
heck, I'm just going to Thailand. You're just like, let's try a month in Mexico first. If I like
Hmm.
that, then I can consider the next step. Oh, I really like that. So that's one of the baby steps you can take. You don't have to, like, instead of
Hmm.
jumping off the mountain, you could like do little leaps and then you get to the bottom as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
But you don't have to just fly over the edge and just
Right.
dive into it. You can just take the little steps.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
And for other people, it might be, asking your boss to be able to work from home 1 to 2 days a week, and see
yeah.
how
Or
that
just
works
see,
for
yeah,
you,
yeah.
and to figure out how do you work your schedule, when's the best time of day for you to be able to work, you know, you start to figure out patterns in your own behavior, and you want to be able to figure out, because a lot of freelancing work is really you're just sort of autonomous, and you're your own boss. But a lot of people don't really know how to manage their time, how to manage projects on their own without somebody really standing over you. If you've got multiple clients, how do you manage that?
How do you
You
juggle
know.
that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
You have to be really like
So.
I'm a very organized person, but I have
Mhm.
friends who've tried the freelancing and they're like, I couldn't do it. Like, how do you do it? But I said, I was always very organized. I never needed a
Hmm.
boss like standing over my shoulder and telling me, even when I was, because I used to be a teacher as well. They
Hmm.
never had to tell me what to do.
Hmm.
Like I was always a step ahead anyway. So yeah, if that's not you, then and not saying you cannot be a freelancer, but you'll have to really learn how to get yourself
Hmm.
organized. Like for me, that's
Yeah.
just like second nature. But
Yeah.
if that's not, you do have to look into ways. Okay, I need to wrap my head around this. How can I make my day the most productive? Where do I need balance, etc.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So,
that's I like this all that. So yeah,
yeah, and
go ahead.
so plan to Thailand, and Thailand or Vietnam is a bit it's less organized as than Thailand. So getting things together like internet or trying to get your money together or power outages tend to be a thing. So you've got to plan your freelance writing business around all of that. Everything still needs to be able to keep going. System fairly quickly to be able to still serve your clients, keep your marketing systems going. Um, work on all your other projects that you want to be able to work on um, without missing a beat, really. And so, if that is something that you find to be challenging, then that's just something that you have to learn how to work around. So, I've
Yeah.
gained a lot of skills in just sort of planning ahead for what are the things that I might need, just in case something goes wrong. If the power goes out, what am I going to do? Right before we had this conversation, I had emailed you saying that there was a whole production. I don't know if it's a birthday party or what going on outside.
I'm not hearing
Um,
anything, so that's good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but now there's a torrential downpour, so I'm just hoping that the internet doesn't go out. Because
Yeah,
there
but
was
so
a.
this is another. So would you say that because of course if this is not something that would make, because the thing is, what I do believe is experience is everything, but there are certain things that make some people thrive and
Mhm.
that make other people rather like it just doesn't work for them. So if this is not, some people will get excited about this, like it's a challenge,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, so some people will become more energetic because they're like, it's a new obstacle that I have to have to overcome.
Mhm.
Other people might not be like, oh, if that happens all the time, I don't know what I'll do.
Right.
So then, for example, Thailand might be a better country for them if they want to travel. But also, I think, isn't there also, to a certain extent, you have to allow for that adjustment to happen?
Mhm.
And then before, because I also think quite a few people, they go someplace. Like I just moved abroad last February. Um,
Mhm.
so the first few weeks, I had my moments that I was entirely unhappy. Um, and quite a few people around me worried about that. Well, I was like, yeah, well, I'm
Mhm.
unhappy now, but I think that's just the transition. Like it's a
Yeah.
lot moving to another country, having to find
Mhm.
a place.
Mhm.
It was my jump from leaving my day job and
Mhm.
going for my business full time. So there was all kinds of things going on. And like I said, quite a few people were like looking at me like, is this going? Is this is she doing okay? And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
I'm not really doing okay. But I also like, let's see in a few weeks how I'll feel. Once I
Yeah.
feel grounded here, and that is exactly, and I just had the same thing. I was just abroad. I was in the Netherlands and I was in Scotland for in total of 5 weeks. And the first few days back in Cyprus, I was completely off. I was like, I
Mhm.
like, and it took me a few days to snap out of that. But I think it's
Yeah.
just another transition.
It
So
is.
you can also, to a certain extent, you have to allow that. Like sometimes you're like, you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
And of course, if that goes on for too long, you need to adjust. You need to do something
Mhm.
about it. But for like allow for adjustment period and just, for transitions to happen. And like right now, like I snapped myself out of it because of course I wasn't meditating in those days. And the day I
Hmm.
decided, let's go back to meditating, I was back. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, so there's a balance there as well, of course. But that's all
Hmm.
part of figuring out what works for you. See, not
Hmm.
everybody has to move to Thailand or Vietnam to be happy, right? It can be a small thing. It can be
No.
a small adjustment. Yeah,
Hmm. I mean, it may require moving to
yeah,
the city next door. It's you don't have to
yeah,
make a huge jump like perhaps we have
yeah,
decided to do. But the point is to find what is it that you want. Um,
yeah. What works for you? What
that's
inspires you?
what works for
Yeah,
you. And
yeah,
just that process of learning how to be able to deal with change. Change is so difficult for a lot of people, and when you're resistant to change, it really brings up a lot of unhappiness in people. And when you put yourself in situations where you feel uncomfortable, you just sort of learn to sort of go with the flow and see what comes up, and you just find a way to be able to deal with it, um, so that you can be happy with the space that you're in. It's such a
yeah.
great skill to be able to be able to learn how to move and flow in different directions. And when things change, you change.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Change is the only constant we have.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. I think that's a great thing to end the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. This is, I think, for a lot of people who will watch this, this will be very encouraging. That if you
Mm-hmm.
feel something's off or you want to start over, you can take the time you need. You don't have to, once you know or you think you know what you do want, you don't have to like go ahead and after it. You can take time to get to that point. You can
Hmm.
be kind and graceful to yourself in
Hmm.
the transition because like you said, it's when change is involved, it's going to be scary. So you, especially your ego will go like will try to prevent you from doing it, and then you will say things to yourself, it's just not the right time, it's just this, it's
Hmm.
just no. Have that honest conversation with yourself, like ask what you want, and you don't have to rush it. You can take your sweet time figuring out where you want to be, as long as you take the steps. Don't
Absolutely.
don't yeah, don't quit the path just because you're afraid of
Hmm.
finding what's at the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid to go for what you want.
Yes, I love that. Let's end on that. Thank you so much again. And do because I will put like of course I will put this on YouTube as well. So in the
Mhm.
meantime, just send me your link so people know where to find you, and I will put that in the
Sure.
notes. And thanks again. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck with all the rain. Like I have blue skies. And I think our internet might be crashing right now.
Yeah.
That's the rain on. That's the rain on your end, right? Okay. I'm gonna finish the video now. Thanks again for being here.
Okay.
Have a good
Bye
day.
bye.
Bye.